Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I hope you had a refreshing cup of coffee or tea. And so we're here for the final session of the afternoon in terms of our discussions. And as I mentioned earlier, the topic that we're going to address today is the diamond industry at a crossroads. And you know, I joined the diamond industry as a journalist in 2007, and I can't tell you how often I've heard that claim, you know, that the diamond industry is at a crossroads. Yeah, but this time it's real, you know. But the truth is, I actually do feel it's a real crossroads that the diamond industry is at this point in time, given the many the internal and external challenges that it faces, the different changes that are affecting the industry, again, primarily, I think, within the industry. Competing products, as we all know, the conflicting agendas that maybe are restraining progress, and a fascinating legacy in the industry that almost forces us to do things differently and think differently. So I do think that we're at a pivotal point in our journey as an industry, and so there's a lot to discuss within this this whole environment. I was speaking to one of our panelists before that given all that's going on and what we want to discuss today, there's a research report to be written on it. And don't tempt me, I may still do that. But to help us understand all these issues, I have again a pool of talent that, if we locked them in a room together with our panelists from the last session and gave them the directive and mandate to reinvigorate the industry and reinvent the way we do business and think on a strategic level, I think we'd be really encouraged by the results. And so that's my goal today. With this panel discussion, we've all heard the arguments and the issues before, but let's maybe think strategically in terms of how our approach to the challenges that lie ahead. And so I'd like to call our panelists to the stage. Our first, in no particular order, but we have is Yoram Dvash. Yoram, please. Yoram is the president of the World Federation of Diamond Bourses. David Kelly is the CEO of the Natural Diamond Council, for now. Wafa Jaffrey is the Senior Executive Precious Stones at the Dubai Multi-Commodity Center and the Dubai Diamond Exchange. Maher Borhanju is the Chief Commercial Officer at De Beers. Ravi Bansali is the Managing Director of Rosy Blue Belgium, right? And the Vice President of the Antwerp World Diamond Center. Brijesh Dolokia is a second-generation entrepreneur at Hari Krishna Exports, and Didier Bacart is the director of Bonus Group. And so welcome to all of you, and thank you for joining us. And in advance of your knowledge and insights, because knowing each of you and having got to know each of you, you certainly have that in abundance. So I actually want to do something a little different with this panel, and and we're going to have a quick rapid fire round in which we'll each have 30, or you'll each have 30 seconds to answer the question, what is the biggest challenge facing the diamond industry and why? And the rules are that it's okay if you've heard the answer before, because if we get 7 or 8 of the same answer, it's very telling as well. And secondly, let's keep it to 30 seconds. We've got a timer here, so I might just cut you off as we meet that that deadline. So maybe we'll start with ladies first. Rose among the thorns over here. Wafa, how do you answer that question? What is the biggest challenge facing the diamond industry?
Thank you, Avi. From my side, I think the main challenge would be alignment. It's because there are a lot of, as per my work in the Dubai Diamond Exchange and the MCC, we have a lot of frameworks and a lot of policies that are going on, but not all of them are connecting. So I think if we are aligned, more aligned in that term, we can do better. And yeah, I think that is the major challenge. The alignment is the one that is most required in the current scenario.
That echoes a lot of the messaging that we saw from the previous panel. Brijesh, let's go to you. It's random.
So thank you, Avi, and I want to include something within 30 seconds. And as David mentioned, maybe I'm the youngest here in the panelist. I want to thank CIBJO and Dr. Gaetano about it, and Avi as well for choosing me and giving me opportunity for being in the panel. Most of them knows me, that I'm from Hare Krishna Exports. We are a diamond manufacturing company. Coming to your question, as I mentioned, I'll include everything in 30 seconds. The biggest challenge here in the industry, we feel as a company, is the economic conditions of various countries. Otherwise, I feel everything is good enough, and we find opportunity even in bad times. So I feel economic conditions of various countries.
So far, this isn't going the way I was expecting it to. So, and that's a compliment. Mahir, as we call him the best dressed man in the industry, or I do anyway. So, why don't you?
So sweet. Is that all? I'm just the best dressed man. Thank you. I'm very lucky to be married to her. So that should be the.
It's certainly a complimentary couple for sure.
Look, it's 30 seconds, huh? If I start out at a helicopter view, I think the most important and most crucial thing that we have to appreciate and understand is consumer confusion. Because that, to me, is probably the most critical thing that we have to address sooner rather than later. There are other things like around misalignment in pricing, tariffs, supply and demand, how much is supplied and how much is the consumer demand is, etc. All of those things are important. But if you look at the primary thing that we need to ensure that we address is that consumer confusion around what is natural, what is not. You know, what they're buying, is it really worth what they actually say is buying or not?
Thank you for that. Yoram, I'd like to turn to you.
So my point of view, I try to look, as Mayar said, from different level. The different level is not about one booth or one business. The different level is about the diamond industry. And the most important thing is to tell the consumer the story of the diamond, the story of the nature, the story of Mother Earth, the story of this diamond became from 1 million year to 1 billion year. This is the most important thing, to show them the beauty of the diamond, the natural diamond, and the difference between that and the synthetic or the lab-grown, whatever the name. You know, my children used to tell me that my biggest smile is when I open a parcel of rough. And really, when I saw rough, I always become excited. Because I knew that after a few months, it's going to be in a Fifth Avenue, shining, something amazing, that somebody that loves his woman or his wife come and buy it for her. So this is the story that we have to push. Thank you.
Yoram. Didier?
I think there's a multitude of challenges, to be honest. I mean, both macro and microeconomic problems. I think obviously consumer confidence and consumer preferences and staying relevant for the consumer is of utmost importance. And on top of that, obviously, we've seen all the challenges which we're currently facing in the midstream, be it tariffs, be it lab-grown diamonds. Hasn't been mentioned yet. I'm still going to mention it. Excuse me, it's synthetic diamonds. I've been badly trained today. Or factory grown, whatever you want to call it, anyways. So I think there's multiple issues, and I think we're, at midstream level, pretty much riding the perfect storm. I think so. There's lots of things to be done.
Thank you, Didier. I'm not going to give the final word to David. So David, go ahead.
Oh, so it's not based on age and bad looks then, so
no.
Or else I really would be last. Yeah, well, I'm delighted to hear so many people talk about consumers actually and demand, because sometimes I feel we do get bogged down in the challenges, as I said earlier. So for me, consumer demand is everything. When I first came into this industry, someone took me aside in the first week and gave me the long list of challenges that I had to resolve. And I said, I know nothing about this industry, so I don't mean to put you right, but I said, what I do know is that consumer demand solves 95% of your problems that you're telling me about. So prosperity is critical. And therefore, to that point, for me, China is the big challenge. Actually, China is a big challenge because demand there has been very, very challenging since the pandemic. We all, added to that, we all anticipated a much bigger bump in demand coming out of the pandemic, so built inventory levels and everything else that with it. So China remains the market that's most challenged, and I think if that gets to a better place, that would have a massive difference to the prosperity of this industry.
Thank you, David. And again, your answer surprised me somewhat because I thought you might look at it on a more macro level. But I do appreciate you going a bit nuanced on that. Ravi, last but not least.
Thank you, Avi, and also thank you to CIBJO for having us. To Gaetano, thank you. I would kind of echo Mahir's, which is misinformation, but I think there's two parts to it. There's an external misinformation. When I say external, it's down to consumers, where I think there's a lot of mixed messages, bad messages, and a lot of false statements are allowed to float out there without any challenge or confrontation to that. And there's a challenge to correct what's out there. But there's also internal misinformation, where within the trade, there's a lot of discussion around what's right, what's wrong, what's acceptable, what's not, what supply chain looks good, what technology is acceptable. And I think there's a lot of time and energy and investments going around building the best possible supply chain, but it's also starting to look sometimes quite widespread and not unifying. So there, I think Wafa is also onto something on alignment. If the industry could align somewhat better, it could also tackle a lot of these issues, all the way up to mine of origin. What is okay, what is not okay, what is the standard to say it's okay?
Thank you to all of you for that. As I mentioned, they're not up here for nothing. But I actually want to also get a sense from the audience. And the answer surprised me because when I think about the challenges facing the industry and what's affecting the market right now, it's very easy to look at the micro, and so we have synthetics is an obvious one. The geopolitical climate and those macro issues, including, for example, gold, the price of gold and how that affects the diamond industry is another. The industry discussion is always is very much focused on funding category marketing. Is that the challenge that's going to, once met, going to satisfy our, what the industry needs to stimulate growth? And then I have a bit of an obsession on the supply side of the industry and this issue of there being seemingly an excess of diamonds in the market and many diamond players in the market. So let me give you all a quick choice, and you can raise your hands if you think this is the biggest challenge facing the industry. Firstly, is it synthetics? Who thinks that it's a synthetics issue? Interesting. Okay. What about the geopolitical macro environment? Okay, that's more than synthetics, I think, or at least on a par. There was an energetic one on the synthetics. What about the issue of category marketing? Who feels that that is the most pressing need of the industry right now?
Can someone write down all the names of the people with their hands up?
And finally, you know, in terms of the supply side and the way the industry is structured, you know, is that a challenge that's foremost for the industry to address? Anyone? Just me? Fine. Okay. I always have this argument with David, and it seems like you have the consensus. But let's start with the consumer space and the demand side of things, David, and I will start with you as a marketer, because it feels like the consumer of diamonds, or the proverbial consumer, relates to natural diamonds in a different way than it did previous generations. And so how has that attitude towards the product changed? You know, what are those trends that the NDC is seeing that informs us about how consumers relate to diamonds?
So it was interesting when you were starting the conversation about being at a crossroads and how you always feel like you're at a crossroads. And the reality is that it's about change. We're constantly in a world of change. And actually, change happens quicker and quicker. With the advent of digital technologies, we all have information at the palm of your hands. This is a very attentive audience. Most times I speak in front of an audience, at least 25% of the audience is on their phones. And that's okay, because that's where we get our information. The average young consumer spends 4 to 6 hours a day on their phones. So change happens really quickly, and it's a challenge for our industry because our strength is our traditions. Many of the maisons have hundreds of years of experience and tradition, and so knowing what to change and how to change is really critical. But I think the big trend that everyone is aware of is that consumers now want to spend money on life, on an experience. Rather now, in theory, that's instead of physical goods. And you see that in many of the luxury markets that aren't jewelry, that they are finding it difficult at the moment. So actually buying luxury goods is a challenge at the moment. But where jewelry differs, and diamond jewelry in particular, is that it is an emotional purchase. It is one of the very, very few things you'll buy, if there are any others, that has no rational, objective purpose to it. Of course my wife needs another pair of shoes. You know, she puts them on her feet and she wears them. But what about the other 200 pairs that are already in the closet? But jewelry, there's no justification for it. It is an adornment. It's an emotional connection. So for me, jewelry always has been that, and even more so now. And that's why I think jewelry is outperforming other luxury categories, because the consumer is in the mindset of, I want to feel good. I want to have an experience. And that's what jewelry brings to people, and not just today, but that stays with them for the rest of their life and probably passed on to future generations.
Thank you, David. Ravi, is that a global trend or attitude? You know, we have a tendency to focus on the United States. It's the biggest, you know, it's over half of consumer demand for diamond jewelry. But what are consumers thinking about, and how are they relating to the product in markets like China?
No, it's a great question, and I think it's pretty. When you see what's happening with gold, it's clear that there are differing views and attitudes towards jewelry around the world. I mean, India, China, I think a lot of Middle East, there is a mindset towards savings and investment when making a jewelry acquisition. So emotion is of course built into it, but it goes beyond that. So, you know, when you face the China question, which came up earlier, this is a people where in the last 5 years they got hammered on real estate price. They felt destruction in value on gem and jewelry. They felt destruction in value on stock market. So their savings, data on savings in China are at an all-time high. They have a lot of money, but they're hesitant to spend it right now until there's a confidence established on whether this is the right moment to enter, not just our space, any of it, because it's once bitten, twice shy situation. So gold is one of the few that they've been clamoring to. So there is difference in attitudes globally. And definitely there is no one size fits all model here. So, you know, when we're talking about category marketing, I do think that's important for America. I do think there's a big story behind that for India and China, maybe with a different angle, because it's not just emotion, you have to bring in the other angle. And then when you're talking about the luxury sector, that's its own entire thing. I don't think we have a business as, you know, diamond people to market there. That's the luxury people, they know what they're doing. So we just have to support correctly and get out of the way on that one. So it's not one answer for all.
Yeah, thank you. Brijesh, you know, we have a, I guess maybe it's the Westerners in the industry that tend to clump India and China together. But while China has really, the slowdown in China has really affected the industry, India has come up with, you know, booming in a way. There's been this massive expansion of jewelry, of the jewelry footprint across India. Firstly, has that continued into 2025? And what does it tell us about again, the same question, about the consumer mindset in India towards the diamond product?
So comparing India and China, I mean, India or our company were exporting about 40% to US. And before 3 years, of course, before pandemic, we used to export 35% to China. And after Corona, the consumer confidence did not come back in China as such, but moving down, they are growing little bit, you can say. And from 35% to coming back to single digit. And wisely, other side, India grew from single digit to double digit, we can say. And of course, the gold prices and everything are increasing. But during the wedding or during the festivals in India, people wants to buy gold. And we as a company launched our own brand called Kisna Diamond Jewelry before 20 years, available in shop and shop. But past 3 years, we started opening our own franchise stores, and we have seen that past 3 years, we have grown to 100 stores from nothing. So as such, we see an opportunity in India much more than China. And as I mentioned, the figures go straight since we are in the whole supply chain from manufacturing of diamonds and jewelry and our brand. So by that, we see a lot of opportunity in India rather than China at the moment.
And is that a gold-driven expansion, or is there a strong diamond element to that's driving that growth?
So when we launched our brand, our all mindset was launching a diamond jewelry brand and not focusing only on gold. But there are various states that needs only gold diamond jewelry or just gold. So we also launched before 3 years just gold products, which is available in southern parts of the states. But overall, we as a company wanted to just launch diamond and gold jewelry, so not just gold.
Joran?
If I may add about China, most of the people put the effort in USA because this is the biggest market. But I don't know exactly, but maybe USA went down 20, 25%, 30%. But China went down 90%. I used to have office in Shanghai and in Hong Kong, and slowly, and after many, many years, I closed those two offices because it's went down 90%. And you know, we had 2 years ago president meeting in Shanghai, and all the formal people from the government, they say the numbers are good, we are going up, 7% up this year, blah, blah, blah. At night, when we sit for drink together, they said we are 90% down. Today I can tell it, 90% down. But in the last few months, I know the market is a bit better. The numbers went up of the import, 15%. And unfortunately, only this week, I assume most of you knows that the government put the VAT from 4% to 13% back. In 2007, they give the diamond industry special deal or whatever you call it. All China is 13. They give the diamond industry 4. Now they took it back, and it's a big problem for the industry because I know the beers and the Chow Tai Fook put a lot of effort and a lot of money in China, but with this problem, we know what's happening. The smuggling will start. And you cannot work in a market with 13%. You cannot work.
Certainly, and with the tariff conversation being so focused on the United States, sometimes that news gets buried. And I think, you know, Joram, what I remember from that WFDB meeting is that, and it alludes to what David was saying earlier, is that there are fundamental changes I think there are societal changes in China that are affecting the diamond industry, the diamond jewelry industry, that that perhaps we don't address as much in terms of, you know, the marriage rate, for example, or the age that couples get engaged, or if they choose to get married at all. You know, so thank you for that input. Maher, you know, maybe turning back to the US in some way, but it's a global question. We are seeing it's not all gloom, because you know, all the research that I'm seeing is that Gen Z is deeply engaged in jewelry, you know. And maybe you can speak to that. You know, is that even more so than previous generations? There's a design element to it that's maybe we weren't as aware of in the past. But you know, this younger generation that's driving growth in the broader jewelry sense, you know, what are they doing differently from your perspective, and how does that actually involve diamonds? Maybe it's not diamonds at all.
This is why I said there's a lot of confusion. If I look at the United States and you walk into not a Cartier, not a Tiffany or any of those retail stores, but if you walk into a local independent retail store, you have an I1 quality diamond and a VVS2 quality synthetic, right? Consumer walks in, they have a certain amount in their pocket that they want to spend. You put those two stones in front of them and say, you could buy this for that price, or you could buy this for that price. They're exactly the same. Lie number one, right? If they were exactly the same, you would not have a machine that could actually tell the difference between the two in less than 5 seconds. So that's misleading the consumer. Full stop. Call it what you want, lab-grown, synthetic, factory-made, whatever it is, right? The fact of the matter is they both can coexist, as Roberto said, whom I don't see, who left. He left. Thank you, Godfather. But the fundamental aspect of it is, anybody here from the emerald industry? Somebody there, emerald, raise your hand. You guys have a great way of talking about emeralds that have a lot of characteristic in them. You call it a garden, no? Garden. Yet, in the diamond industry, what do we call it? An I1, I2. It's called an imperfection if you're lucky. It's called frozen spit. Right? I'm being real here. We have these diamonds that we call frozen spits have billions of years of unique characteristics within them. They have things in them that you actually don't see in many other products. Yet we have the inability to take something that's unique and create something negative around it. Fariel has a really good saying. She says that rough people look at an opportunity in a diamond, and polished people look at the flaw within the diamond. And that's 100% right. When I look at a diamond, I look at those birthmarks. I look at those unique characteristics. I look at how beautiful and how rare and unique each one of those characteristics are, from a PK within the stone to a pinpoint to a feather. To each of them are created because of a unique feature or unique journey that that diamond went through in 1 billion years from it becoming made. Yet we have the inability to really think about that and communicate that as something unique. So when you have that and you're walking into a retail store and you have that, which is more than 1 billion years old, and you have something that was made in a factory and can be mass made, and you don't differentiate it and talk about the truth behind the two, that's when the challenges come in. And that's why we, when we were looking at what do we do here, we created the story about a journey of a diamond, right? Origin. From rough through polish, billions of years in the making, the unique characteristics of each stone, the birthmark of each stone, to be able to sit in a retail store and talk about why this is a Mother Nature's gift to a consumer.
Thank you.
Ravi, sorry.
Yeah, Ravi.
Yeah. No, to add to, I completely agree with Mahir's message. And to add to that, I'm sometimes confounded by the disconnect between what I see being inside the trade and what is spoken about outside the trade. So this story, the billion-year-old story, but even in now and today, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've been through all over Africa. And if you go to Botswana, I mean, I give a little anecdote of my friend Caroline there who used to work for De Beers. Her father was, and she spoke about this publicly, so I'm not revealing anything, dying of cancer. And he got his entire treatment done. And she said it, Ravi, for my country, this entire radiation all the way to treatment was paid for by the diamond industry. You go to Lundasol in Angola, there's schools and universities developed purely by the diamond budget. This is not stories that are just nice on posters. These are real things if you go and see them. You go to India, my friend here, Brijesh, his family's got one amazing foundation like ours does. Like, there's so many great stories out there, but whenever you go to the comment section of what it is in the natural diamond world, it's awful. There is a problem, and it feels strange that it's an industry I'm so proud to belong to, that I feel it does so much good, and yet somehow that message just does not get passed enough down to the next thing. And so just to compare the two, saying that the carbon atoms are arranged the same seems insane to me. We're missing something here in the communication.
Sorry, can I just add one little thing? I know you want to go
briefly,
on.
Because
very
we are going to return to the question of messaging and engagement.
The other part about the fact that we have a mine that actually goes into the earth and brings these diamonds out. One of the most beautiful ways I've heard it explained is to someone in the West that might look like we're actually impacting Mother Earth in a negative way. But 2 million people who live in Botswana, that's a sign of hope. That's free education. That's free medical care. That's roads. That is what has given Botswana what it has today. So, you can look at things as cup half full and cup half empty. And our job, through you, Avi, no pressure, is to actually try and tell those true stories about natural diamonds in order to ensure that there is a movement and an appreciation for what diamonds are.
Thank you, Mahir. Brijesh, I'll turn to you in a minute. I do want to say I'm looking forward to the next De Beers campaign called Frozen Spit, which should be interesting how you get to the origin story of that. But Brijesh, we will get to this question of messaging, and in particular whether the extent to which that origin story resonates with consumers, and how sexy it is for retailers to embrace. But Brijesh, you wanted to add an element?
Yeah, so when Meyer mentioned about birthmark, I remember Paul Rowley last year during cocktails, he mentioned about the birthmark do you see in the raw material. And I want to mention, it's in my bag, I found a jellyfish kind of a resemble of a uniqueness in the inclusion, and we made a pin. Maybe I can show you while we go for dinner, or tomorrow I can wear one. But we really saw when Paul Rowley mentioned about that we see birthmark and we can resemble to anything we could, and we started seeing each raw material coming to the factory. So I wanted to just mention that, of course, that's a great way to showcase what raw material could have as an inclusion. And when you talk about traceability and origin, I still remember, since we are in the whole supply chain, and when the diamond comes into the factory, in 2010, my brother Hasso launched My Diamond Story program in 2010 to tell the more story that we could add a value into the retail stores. And we tied up with various retailers in US to tell the story all about. So hence then I see past a few years, the retailers and chain stores want to directly collaborate with manufacturers and say the story all about origin and traceability. And that's how we add up to a renewable and sustainability. So how can we put up a whole whole story while we sell a jewelry. It's not just jewelry, but how can we make a story behind it? So that's what everyone needs to do it.
Well, I think the question of how we sell jewelry is the crux, because I think that's, I think it's quite recognized that that's where the industry kind of lost its way, and in particularly to the synthetic diamond market, that it was, that retailers did put those two stones next to each other and claimed that they were the same, but sold on price points essentially. But there's a lot has happened in the synthetic diamond space in the last few years, and it is part of the broader jewelry industry. I think there is some recognition of that, which begs us to understand where the synthetic diamond industry is coming from. How are they looking at this whole environment? And WAFA, the DMCC hosted its second lab-grown diamond symposium in Dubai earlier this month or last month, synthetic symposium. So maybe you can share with us some of the key takeaways and insights as to how the synthetics market is looking at these at the broader environment.
Sure. I would say the takeaway would be technology and innovation. And the best part about is that it was all about conversation. It was open session, it was awareness session, and this is what we want, to learn from each other. And I think Dubai is providing that platform wherein there is no hesitation. We can all learn from each other, whether it's based on technology or whether it's luxury or jewelry. There has to be a platform where we learn from each other, and that's what we wanted to do, because I myself learned a lot from that symposium, that conference, wherein there's so much going on in that industry that I didn't know, and it wasn't about what I learned personally is not about rivalry. It was about competition. It was definitely not competition at all.
Well, and I think there is this sudden awakening about the technological potential for the use in synthetics. But Yoram, we can't deny the facts that it has taken market share from the natural diamond industry. There is this question of whether it's a competing product or perhaps a complementary product, or if the industry should have this what's the word? It's co-opetition. There we go. So what's from a natural diamond industry? What is how is the trade relating to the product now?
First, if I may say about what we discussed before, in June in New York, in our president meeting, the president of Botswana said, "I'm a child of diamond. The diamond pay my school, and then the beers pay my university. So without diamond, I couldn't be here and standing in front of you, you remember? And it was an amazing story about the diamond industry. But in the end of the day, you cannot tell his story. You know what? One of the retailers that sit with us in the president meeting told me a few days later that a couple came to his store, and he told them this story and convinced them that they buy natural, because in this way they support Africa and not they didn't buy natural. Anyhow, 5-7 years ago in Israel, when I was president in Israel Diamond Exchange, we make many times brainstorming about the synthetic. What it's going to be, how it's going to be. We never thought that it be such a strong numbers. We couldn't believe it will be so strong. I believe that they become to very high level, and from here, I believe it will go down a little bit, and why? First of all, the price becomes so cheap, and from the other side, you see that our industry, it's something like wake-up call, and we need it. You see the Luanda agreement, you see the Bourse is acting differently, put much effort. You see even medium dealers that try to start to invest. So It's difficult. It's hard, but I believe it will be different numbers in, I don't know if it's in the near future, but in the next few years. And we have to struggle. That's it.
Thank you. I think one of the crossroads that we find ourselves at is that there is that the retail space or the synthetic diamond jewelry at retail space is ripe for disruption. Al Cook of De Beers has spoken about that, and I think that's something that we're looking out for. But I want to stick with the trade for the moment. And Didier, I wonder if we can dig into demand a bit. That it seems that synthetics has affected certain categories of the diamond market and less so in others. And so, can you talk a bit about, you're involved in from the rough market through to polished in some way. Are you seeing a segmentation in terms of the categories that are affected by synthetics and that are exerting strength within the natural diamond market?
I think it's been shifting, and I think it's been dynamic. I think we've been studying synthetic diamonds for the last 12 years now, commissioned by JJPC in 2014 to start with. And I think that the dynamics that were playing then are completely different to the ones that are playing now. We were foreseeing synthetic diamonds to grow in certain areas. I remember, there were times where we thought it would be more eating into bridal, then, it shifted to fashion more. I think we're seeing both for the moment. I think it's more about, how do we address this, and how do we put marketing into place that addresses both categories, both bridal and fashion. As you know, we're a service provider. We work with mines, and we work very closely with the mines. We've seen prices being affected, not only by synthetic diamonds, but by other variables as well. But synthetics definitely had a play into this. As you all know, a mine can't survive just on the top goods, the 1 carat VVSs. There's a lot of other goods, near gem, coming out of it as well. So I think it is important for our industry that both categories are being looked into, and that we find the right answer through marketing for both the challenges both in fashion and in bridal.
Well, Brijesh, your family company, HK Group, is involved in both, has invested quite heavily in both products. And so, very briefly, what is motivating that? Where's the opportunity in each of those?
So I still remember before 4 to 5 years back, we were not ready to, even do a polishing of, I'm not sure if I use lab-grown or synthetic, but since I'm here, synthetic diamonds. So we were at all not convinced to even polish synthetic diamonds, but end consumer and our retailers and chain stores wanted that we give you the diamonds and you make the jewelry. So we had to do it. If we don't do it, we know they're going to go to other doors, and hence we started. But still, we saw an opportunity that why don't we have our own growing machines, since the end consumers wants it. And still remember, there were many retailers in US before 3 years, 4 years were not able to convince themselves that they don't want to have it. But after 10 consumers coming to the stores, and 1 started asking, 3 started asking, and now 5. So in species, of course, synthetic diamonds have crossed already the natural diamond jewelry pieces. But as I mentioned, that since it is consumers' demand, and people like us has to do it if our customers, retailers, and chain stores want it, and we did it. And we see we have been balancing in both the senses of our customers. So we are doing great at natural diamonds as well, and also in synthetic as well. So we saw an opportunity in both the jewelry and diamonds.
Thank you for that. I want to shift a little bit away from the synthetics discussion, although this question, which I'm going to address to Maher, is connected, because synthetics is, as we alluded to, pushing segmenting the market, pushing everyone, I think, within the pipeline to find their niche. And my feeling, and it's one of the disruptions that I think is happening at retail, is that that's very specifically happening at retail. That there are there's the high end and the low end and the lower price points that seem to be doing well, but the middle is being squeezed, which is the bulk of those independent retailers in the United States, and it's almost like they're faced with a choice of where to go with their business model. So firstly, is that and sorry, just one other element is that within the industry discussion, it feels like there is this fashion versus bridal elements to it. That lab-grown synthetics is good for fashion, but bridal is where natural diamonds belong. Is that too black and white? And secondly, is that a fair assessment of what's happening in the retail space? Any answer's fine, Maher. Don't worry.
No, the reason why I'm pausing to think about this is because if you look at the high-end independent retailers, not so much. They're very much still pushing natural and driving natural. But when you look at kind of one layer below that, very much so. And we just heard that consumers are coming and asking about lab-grown. How does that happen? A consumer comes into a retail store and they're presented with a synthetic stone and a natural stone, as I had mentioned before, and they try and go shop around next door and next door and next door. And suddenly one consumer has now created 4 demands for the same product. We see this quite a bit in the luxury business as well. A consumer goes and asks for a 20-carat D flawless, and suddenly 15 people are looking for a 20-carat D flawless, and they swear it's for a different customer, but it's for the exact same customer and consumer. And that kind of trajectory increases purely because a retailer makes good margins on synthetic stones today, right? But as we continue to go down, and you mentioned, Yoram, that synthetic stones are continuously decreasing in price. They are decreasing, but not in the retail store as much as they are in the wholesale business, right? So the retailer is now getting more of an advantage because they're buying cheaper and selling it at a higher price. Albeit, let's say 5 years ago, that might have been $5,000. Today, it's $1,000. So you are seeing that decrease in price. And personally, if I were to buy a product that is supposed to give that kind of ultimate sign of relationship and love and endurance, I'd want it to be something that actually hurts my pocket a little bit, to kind of tell the person that I love, I actually put in effort for this. Does that make sense?
Well, we want Fariel to validate that, yeah.
But you can buy something for $500 today. I mean, you go to dinner and have something at a romantic dinner with a bottle of champagne, and everything else is going to cost that much. So I think there will be a time where people will question that. But none of those questions and none of those concerns will ever come into play unless we, as an industry, really work together to tell the natural diamond story. And I think that's such a critical part of the future success of where we need to be as an industry, is really talking about the positive impact and influences that natural diamonds have. Desert Diamonds was rolled out this year by De Beers Group as marketing to get consumers excited about the fact that there are diamonds other than just white. Today we're feeling the pain around the pointers, right? If you look at 2 carat and above, no issues. If you're looking at stars MLAs in the better quality goods, thank you, luxury brands, for continuing to believe in natural diamonds and buying those areas. No issues. But when you still look at some of the lower quality and lower end areas of goods in the mid-range, we are seeing some issues in those areas. So the only way to resolve that is continuation of desirability by the consumer and having them understand the actual truth about what natural diamonds stand for.
Absolutely, and that's certainly a big part of our punchline from this discussion, which we'll get to. David, I wonder if you can address that that segmentation of fashion versus bridal, and the notion that seems to be being pushed that that synthetics is has its place in fashion, and natural its place in bridal. It makes it sound like there's no overlap. And then I'll have a second question for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the expectation. What you said was that synthetics would be in the fashion market, naturals, because of the emotion and the longevity of engagement rings, would be there. I think I rationalised that in retrospect as being because giving an engagement ring is a custom and it's expected, and it's particularly a point in life where people have a lot of financial challenges. And we're talking US specifically here. The US market is very, very different from any other market in the world. That I think because it's a custom, when you've got so much else to fund, that it became some way of kind of, okay, I can cut a corner on this. And so many people I've heard who buy lab-grown diamonds say, in the future, I would like to replace it with a natural diamond, but I've got too many other challenges on my pocket. The difference certainly with higher fashion is that that's a choice. There's no custom. You don't have to buy fashion. And she will make the choice and say, well, actually, if I can't afford the real thing, then why would I buy this? So I think that's where, with retrospect, why we've been where we are up to now. I think for all the reasons that you said, that it has been a retailer-pushed thing, the synthetics in the US. And it comes down to one thing, and that's economics. I mean, we can all talk about other hypotheses, but it's 100% economics. That the moment in synthetic diamond is, you know better, but you might not disclose, is less than $30 a carat to produce. The retailers are still selling them for $1,000. I mean, it really is robbery. You know, it is robbery. And the reason why they can do that, it won't stay forever, but the reason why it's taking time is because we are a low frequency purchase. If we were something you bought every week, you get to know pricing much quicker. You've got consumers coming into stores who don't know enough about lab-grown diamonds, and they think they're getting a great deal because compared with the cost of a natural diamond, it's much cheaper. No one's saying to them, well, actually, you know what? You can buy this online for $100. So we have this artificial, it won't last forever, but it's incredibly painful because we're a low-frequency purchase, and therefore it takes longer to that real price knowledge to filter through into consumer awareness.
Ravi, before we move on from the
sorry, I don't want to also just talk synthetics here the whole time, but just it's not the way you framed it, the way we see the data. It's not synthetics is fashion and bridal isn't. In fact, bridal in America, a big chunk has gone to synthetics. The data shows more than half. And for whatever reasons, it can be economics, it can be misconception of environmental friendly, whatever the reasons, a budget for honeymoon should go up and go down on this side, whatever the reasons are. So bridal has been deeply impacted. But I was on an interesting global call within my group, within Rosy Blue right now, where we were going center-wise and examining, and a pattern emerged, so I did a bit of deep dive, and I'll try to put it in a nutshell. Lab-grown synthetics has had more tailwinds and done better in English-speaking countries. So US, Australia, UK, New Zealand, all of them have done better with synthetics. And Europe, Asian countries, the traction isn't as strong or as great. And there's a number of reasons. Social media is a big part of it, the way we observe it. A lot of misinformation on social media, which is in the English language, a lot of it. And also the fact that synthetics translates in a lot of languages to sounding more like fake or imitation, whereas in English, making it lab-crafted, and there are more sexy terms being used for lab-grown. So there's a cultural aspect to this as well. Cultural language matters, and I feel this is where the natural industry has not done a great job of owning our words and owning the language.
Thank you for that very important insights on both points. I appreciate it. And I think what it alerts me to is that the segmentation is actually not on on product, but on price point and positioning. And perhaps that's where I'm seeing the choice among retail jewelers, that they have a choice on where to position themselves, but they can't do everything for everyone as they may have in the past. And my follow-up question to you, David, is this a general retail development? Are we entering in the age of niche retail, or are we in it?
No, I mean the other. You can look at it through so many different lenses.
Yeah.
So as you'll hear through it, the other thing is that retailers that are looking at short-term business, that are the ones that have got more into lab grown. They see the economics of it. They're not looking a year, 2 year, 5 years down the line. They're the ones that have been pushing lab grown, because in the short term, that's what make them money. Either because they are private organizations that aren't looking to stay in the business for long. They're public corporations that have to report once a quarter on what they do. Anybody in this industry, unfortunately, we have a lot of independent jewelers that are looking longer term, are natural diamond stalwarts. It's not to say they won't supply a lab-grown diamond if the customer insists, but but there's a definite divide between the retailers. And what I'm hearing, and the good news is for this holiday, is that what I'm hearing is that a lot of retailers are now saying we can see the writing on the wall for our business with the pricing going where it is today. And so a lot of retailers in the US are incentivizing their staff to sell natural diamonds, and that's a reverse of where we have been. They're working on education, and it's still nowhere near at the level which we would all want it to be. But I do think, and it's painfully slow, it frustrates all of us in the room here, but I think we're past the peak. There's no buzz in press, there's no buzz, there's no longer this is the new kid on the block, and false and misrepresentation of what lab-grown diamonds are. So, okay, I'm not going to spend time on that. So that's what's really important. I do think that we are in that inflection point that I do believe we'll see lab-grown diamonds, synthetic diamonds have their position, but the whole hype will die down, and that they'll be properly positioned where we all think they truly should be.
Thank you. That's very encouraging. I was trying to segue into a different topic, but I'm just going to make the clean break now because it's not working.
Should have given us the answers before you, as well as the questions.
I wouldn't even give you the questions, never mind the answers. What I was trying to get to in terms of that middle income independent jeweler being squeezed is that the retail space is getting smaller. There are many, for whatever reason, not only a matter of sales. I think the main reason is generational. Actually, I think there are many sort of boomers that that don't have their offspring are not wooed into the jewelry industry, and so they're just closing up shop. But there is this sense that there's more sales in the hands of fewer at retail. And certainly I think there is a pressure on the midstream that's being exerted where, and this being another one of our big challenges, where the diamond midstream is being squeezed, and there maybe isn't as much room for as many players as there used to be. And so, Yoram, I'd like to address this question to you, and particularly with regard to the dealer market. Is that firstly, is that attrition, as we might call it, occurring in the midstream?
Yeah, I think you touch a very important point, but it started maybe 15, 20 years ago about the dealers. When salesmen start to come from Israel and from India to US, and with bag, without offices, without expense, start to sell diamond to the dealers. So the dealers from one side were very happy, it was cheap. From the other side, those pioneers, the Indian and the Israelis, took the market slowly. And everything in life, it's a process. It's not one day, it's not 5 days, 5 years. But today, the dealers are under attack. I can tell you that many of them went out of the market or become jewelers. And today in New York, for example, you have few huge dealers, mostly Indians or only Indians, and that's it. The middlemen are going out from the business, that's for sure.
Well, Ravi, what is the role of the dealer? You know, in today's market, we're seeing, again, a sort of we've seen a vertical integration of different business models across the pipeline. And so does the dealer have a role to play?
So I think not all dealers are the same. There was a lot of layers in our industry going back where, to be very honest, it was inefficient. And it was also, because of that, opaque. And you did not have a transparent line through the supply chain. So a lot of the layers disappearing has brought a lot of transparency into the industry. And more value-adding actors have been able to rise in that environment. Having said that, there's also an important role for some type of dealer model because, see, one of our industry challenges today is where is the inventory absorber? The miner, more or less, most of the miners are under pressure to sell. The midstream is struggling because of price instability and don't want to stock. And traditionally, that was the role of the dealers. So, you know, today you do have multiple hats played by all of us. I mean, we are both a dealer and a manufacturer and a producer. Like, we're doing more than one role, of course, in our position. So I think within dealer, we have to be careful how we name that. But there was, you know, if you look at any diamond center, you know, in Belgium, I can speak for Antwerp, I'm on AWDC, we have 1,600 registered diamond companies. I don't think that's going to be the number that survives. I don't even think close to that. There is a generational change happening. There is youth and capital that is exiting. And I don't think all of it is necessarily bad. That's fine. There is a more probably efficient number of people that need to be in the industry. But we have to also be careful that it doesn't get so crushing that you start losing the interest of valuable players. So.
Thank you. Didier, I'd like to follow up with you, if you don't mind. What does that tell us about the midstream's ability to manage inventory? You know, the inventory risk, so to speak, has been pushed to the midstream, at least in the last 20 years or so, I think. Yeah, I believe it has, but we can debate that another time. You know, it's one thing to say that there are too many players in the industry, but what about diamonds? You know, with these changing market conditions, are there too many diamonds to satisfy the needs of the midstream players?
Again, I think there's not one answer to that. I think I fully agree with Ravi, by the way, on what he said on the midstream. I think there has been a change, a massive change. I think the pipeline has become much more direct. I also agree with Ravi that certain people didn't find their role anymore in this industry and therefore decided to either move out or, you know, change their focus. I've known of dealers becoming financing people in this industry instead of, you know, focusing on the diamonds themselves. And therefore, you know, I mean, the change is there. Are there too many diamonds? I think for the moment, I think we're facing so many disruptions that it's quite unclear. I mean, it looks like for the moment there's definitely enough. Coming back to the midstream and how they're carrying that risk, I think the midstream has become quite lenient and they've become quite responsible as well. I can see that, you know, the midstream is handling their inventories completely differently now than what they were doing 10, 15 years ago. I think some of the unfortunate bankruptcies in the past have definitely taught a lesson to many people. And therefore, I think, you know, the midstream currently is much more cautious. I mean, we're not seeing, even though, you know, the industry is really in turbulent times, I mean, we're not seeing massive disruptions at midstream level, you know, where people have to dump goods and whatever you. I think the midstream is really behaving quite well. Having said that, yeah, for the moment, I mean, with all the disruptions we're seeing, also don't forget, you know, the tariffs in America are not helping. I mean, we've had big sales of polished going into America just prior to the tariffs, that again a few months ago, which basically means, you know, that people have to carry those inventories for a slightly longer time. Not in the easiest markets, obviously, with prices under pressure as well. I would hope that there's still not enough diamonds for what is coming. I'll put it like that. But for the moment, it's quite volatile for the moment.
Thank you, Brijesh.
So when we talk about midstream and squeezing the margins, there are many Polish dealers who have gone out of the business, but there are many who have still innovated themselves and saw an opportunity, and they have grown as well. And people like us, purely a manufacturing of diamonds, we grew much more. And if I say a little bit story of my family, we started in 1992. My uncle and my father, they are four brothers who started. We started selling in Surat, where there are manufacturing hub. Then we moved to Mumbai, and then we moved to, as Yoram mentioned, that Israel and US. So we saw an opportunity, and we grew to one country to other country where there is a demand. And as Ravi also mentioned, that we have been, mentor. We consider Rosy Blue as a mentor, and we have grown with them. So past 33 years, we have also grown in what margins are squeezed. You're talking about past 20 years. So we have always innovated ourselves and saw an opportunity where we can move upwards. So we have always seen an opportunity in good times and bad times as well.
Thank you. Maher, you look like you need to renege my notion that the mining segment doesn't hold or take on that inventory risk, partly correctly.
No, I look, I'll come to that in just 1 second. I didn't want to renege anything. I respect you too much. I think the midstream is evolving, right? I think the people who were making a couple of percent buying a stone and selling it, those are the ones that are going to be perhaps more challenged than what I coin as the stockists of our industry. There are people who buy a large volume of goods for retailers and specifically focus on value adds that they can actually create for those retailers. Those companies are going to survive, and they're going to actually continue to do really well. And those are the kind of players that will continue to exist. I think our industry sees things in many different ways. Some retailers want to make a quick buck. Some retailers are in it for a long term. Some retailers have a 10, 15, 20-year plan. De Beers looks at mining in a very different way. We look at things in a minimum of 10 years and a maximum of 40 years, right? When we are actually investing, going $1 billion, putting $1 billion to go underground in Venetia, we're not going to get a single diamond out of that aspect of what we're doing to go underground in Venetia for quite some time, sometimes about a decade from the time that we actually go underground. When we actually find a mine like a great space that we found in Angola, to actually go through the entire process can take 10 to 15 years before we even can go into mining it. And when we do that, it's going to take 5 years for us to actually get to the first diamond. So there's a lot of investment that goes into actually opening up a mine and going through what we do in a mining in the mining side of the business. When we look at supply and demand, we look at what is necessary and needed within the world that we live in, and then we look at that demand and what does that translate to rough production, and that's how we mine goods. If you are dealing with a finite material, and it is finite, some of our mines, we've closed down a few of our mines. Everyone knows when you're dealing with a finite product, what would you like to do with it? Sell it at a lower and lower and lower and lower price to a point where some of the mines need to close down? Or would you actually rather ensure that for that country, for the well-being of the people of that country, those products are kept in the mines and managed properly in order to ensure that the consumer gets the best benefit out of the finite product that we have 20, 30, or 40 years left of?
Thank you, and it certainly alerts us to the difficulty in which the mining segment finds itself in the last year, especially. I don't recall seeing so many market-related suspensions of operations, companies seeking finance for their mining operations. But there's something else very interesting, I think, happening in the mining segment and in particular in the rough supply segment. And that is sort of a democratization of rough supply. That's a result of several developments. Firstly, we have there's the pending sale of De Beers, and so there's some uncertainty as to how the continuity of current De Beers business models might continue. At the same time, De Beers and the government of Botswana have a new agreement which directs more of Botswana production to the government of Botswana, Okavango Diamond Company, for its independent sales, meaning that De Beers has less of its of the production to sell it on its own. We have Angola emerging as a major and very exciting area for diamond production, and with that, it emerges as a major rough supplier. And finally, we have the emergence of the tender houses that are playing a more important role in rough supply. And so we've kind of, whereas historically we had a one-channel supply system, we moved to a two-channel supply system with De Beers and Alrosa dominating supply for many years. And by the way, we also cannot discount Alrosa coming back into the market at some point in terms of accounting for its supply. So, so from a one-channel to two-channel to three, we're now sort of faced at a crossroads where we potentially have 4 or 5 major producers of rough diamonds in the market. And so, Didier, I turn to you as
suspicion, yes.
because as we mentioned, you dip your toes in that space. How does this democratization of supply affect the diamond industry?
I think there's been a natural evolution. Also, don't forget, we just represent junior mining companies, some of them that might not have been around, when it was just the base running. And it's a tiny fraction. I think these junior mining companies are obviously trying to optimize, the values they can get. They don't necessarily have the skills in-house, and therefore, turn, to tender houses to see whether they could help them optimize, the value for their rough diamonds. Obviously, it's democratized in a sense, yeah. Partly yes to the midstream. Midstream players can come and buy from these tender houses, not just us. There's many more. And if they put the right price, whether through a tender or an auction model, have access to diamonds. Having said that, coming back to what has been said before, I still believe that the strong players in the midstream will still be benefiting even from the tender system as well. I can see certain companies, winning consistently, through or via our tenders as well. It's maybe not always the traders, it might be financing people, it might be very strong midstream players, that have downstream demand and have direct channels, to retailers. And we can see certain trends, but it gives people the chance to win diamonds if they have the right distribution for it.
Thank you. Ravi, in terms of rough buying, how does that not empower the buy side of that segment of the market, whereas before it was, to be, well, I don't know how to put this. Whereas before there was a sense that the seller dictated terms and the buyers sort of met those terms. So how does it affect the buyer-seller relationship in the rough market?
Who are you referring to now?
Frankly, many companies.
Yes, no.
Frankly, many. It's not a dig at any particular entity.
It's a very interesting debate. Mayor. No, I think like anything, when a system changes this drastically, it's not all good or all bad. It comes with a basket of things. So one is, there is, of course, a wider spread of mining sales options that a trading company or buying company like ours or British can approach. But at the same time, I think, okay, how do we do this? There's distribution challenges. No, I'm not hiding anything. I will say what it is. No, there are distribution challenges that this has presented. So I believe one of the big problems our market has is inefficient distribution into the midstream. So what happens is when the upstream gets this fragmented, goods don't find their ways to the right hand so easily. They're going zigzag across the place. They're being a little bit, every month another tender, another result. This is disturbing the marketplace. Whereas in the way it used to be, it was a lot more streamlined and it was a lot more concentrated. And I'm not talking about manipulation, but that left a certain degree of patience and control over things rather than today where this has increased the volatility. But we live in the world in which we live today. So hopefully some of the major ones like you just mentioned, De Beers is there, Alrosa is right now, it's facing its challenges, but Angola is emerging. As they evolve their sales mechanisms to be more sharper at their distribution, I'm hopeful that we can get back to a kind of win-win situation. And the other part of this is also why we were at the Luanda Accord, all of us at the signing in Luanda, which is about the fact that De Beers on its back carried a lot of the burden and weight of promoting and preserving value for our natural product. And they can't do it anymore. It's not fair to them, and it's not correct in this world, which is much more fragmented. So the idea was to align everybody around that effort. And as you know, I've been a little bit vocal about that, about making sure everybody follows through on that.
Thank you, Ravi. Brajesh, you want to have a stab at this?
Yeah, so I'm not going to use my brain or so professional to answer it. Whatever I'm going to say, I'm going to say from my heart and experiences. So I still remember the time, when I was young and my family was talking about De Beers and Alrosa getting separated in 90s. And that was also in time we started getting more supplies. And I still remember the time when we got direct site from De Beers was 2012 and getting direct supplies from DDC, from Rio Tinto. And that was the time we grew 100% from $400 million turnover to $800 million. And now when you ask what is the relationship with all the miners, it's like always an opportunity to grow yourself. And it's such times, good or bad, we have grown always. So I feel it's advantage and disadvantages as well, but we have grown. So, I mean, you can take it as how I'm saying as an experience.
Thank you, Brajesh, and thank you, Ravi. You may.
Father, may I? I think right now, if you think about it, and it's exciting because you have ODC who's come on board, you have Angola who's coming in and really changing the way that this industry is. Alrosa goods are still being sold, right? They're just not being sold to the G7 as we know it, but they're still being sold. So where I think a company can stand up and stand out, at least on the mining side, is their leadership. It's what they opt to do and where they put their best foot forward and how they actually behave during challenging times, during difficult times, and also how they stand up for what's right. And I think looking at things like this and really believing in the vision of the company and what that organization believes in, and being able to then show it to your customers, show it to the consumers, is what will actually make certain mining companies perhaps known as the leaders of the industry, even though they may not necessarily be 50% of the market share.
Well, thank you for bringing that up, because as we start to wind down, and we do need to address the aspects of messaging and marketing, but leadership is actually the sort of umbrella term for that. But my follow-up question to what Ravi and Brijesh and Didier mentioned in terms of leadership, De Beers has historically exerted or expressed its leadership in two ways. The one famously through marketing and the role that you've played in that, but the other has been on the supply side, and with its ability to offer flexible terms to site holders. but with this, and through that leadership, the volume of diamonds that might have come to the market in challenging times would have been limited and helped to spur a recovery in the market. And so that ability to do so it has diminished, I would say, from De Beers as other suppliers have a similar influence on the market. So and I would urge everyone, including myself, for this part of the conversation to keep it brief. But what does leadership mean from a De Beers point of view in this changing environment?
For us, I go back to something that Nicky Oppenheimer said a long time ago, where I didn't have white hair. He said, "We're a marketing company that happens to own a mine." And to me, that resonates so much to where we are today and what we need to do as an organization and as a business. And I think if we actually focus on the consumer's desirability, the consumer's needs, we can actually show who we are as a business. We've been in this industry for 138 years. All the goods and the bads, from world wars to the downturns to 1 carat diamonds going from $60,000 a carat to $10,000 a carat. So we've seen it all. And we're continuously learning from it. And I think the future, where De Beers is really looking at our impact into the business towards how we actually see the future of this business needing to be around marketing, around the sustainable development goals, around doing what's right for the business, and also around how we actually talk about natural diamonds and how we actually work with people like CIBJO in order to ensure that the right information is out so that we don't confuse the consumer. For me, that is such a critical part of the success of our industry for the future. So I just want to thank Gaetano for believing in a lot of the things that we've all been doing together, and CIBJO, obviously, because without that belief, we wouldn't have this environment to be able to have these sorts of conversations that we've had today.
Absolutely. I think it echoes everyone's sentiment. Before I turn to you, David, Wafa, I would like to ask you, what sort of role does the trade play in this, firstly, marketing discussion and effort, and in terms of being a leader within the industry?
The Luanda Accord, if we talk about it, it was a great initiative, and we were part of the signatories alongside all of my colleagues, and it is a bit slow, I would say, because we are still, there are a lot of things, there are a lot of different directions that everyone have in their own ecosystem and in their own, so we're trying to align that, and once that is done, I think the trust has to be scalable. There is provenance, and once that scalability is there, we will be able to move forward with that. But of course, marketing, it is very important, and Dubai itself is going forward with that.
Thank you, and I think we're not going to get into the traceability element of it, but I think that is one area that the trade has a vital role to play, and the element of trust is all connected to that. So I appreciate your comments. Yoram, do you have anything to add on the role that the trade and trade bodies such as the WFDB, the WDC, CIBJO, etc., have in terms of leadership within the diamond industry?
Yes. And before that, I want to say about what Oppenheimer said. It's so smart. And I can tell you that when Oppenheimer family run the show, everybody makes money. The retailer, the jewelers, the manufacturer, the whatever. Time change.
I don't think he's coming back.
No, I know.
He has an
But
opportunity, though.
Good to remember. The most important thing is to work together. And I remember the first day President Trump announced about the tariff, I called Feriel. She's not here. But I called her and I told her, listen, we have plenty of countries that using diamond. It's India, Israel, Belgium, whatever. And we have to work for the diamond, not for the Belgian diamond or the Israeli diamond or the Indian diamond. We have to put our efforts together, all the organization, to take the diamond out from this tariff. And we agreed about that, and then we agreed that WDC will control it, and we signed a paper that we support them, and it was okay. I remember times that the leaders kill one each other to be the first one. It doesn't matter. What is matter? To serve our people, to serve the industry. All the ego, we don't have time for ego because it's really difficult time for the diamond industry. And I want to tell you, I used to be always the youngest in the panels. Now I'm the oldest. So believe me, I know what I'm talking about. Thank you very much, Gaetano, for having us here with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yoram. And it's such a lovely message to focus on the diamond, and it's a great message to end with. But I do want to give David the final word, because David, as you mentioned, you're stepping down from your role at the NDC at the end of the year, and so it kind of gives you a some reflection on what the industry needs. And so maybe this is an opportunity. What is your parting wish, what is your parting wish, and what direction would you like to see the diamond industry move in terms of its focus?
Yeah, I mean, I think a question you asked earlier about leadership, actually, and for me, and I'll come on to your answer, leadership is about taking a long-term view. And it's inevitable in an industry such as ours that we all worry about the short-term challenges. But success is always about the long term. And the long term, and CIBJO's been here for 100 years. The Maisons have been around for hundreds of years. So taking the long-term view is what creates success. And that means having the discipline not to respond to short-term things that might make us angry in the short term, but on there. So what I think for the long term is that we have to invest in communication with the consumer. I know that's the answer everyone would expect me to say, but it remains what I fundamentally believe in. People who know me well will know that I am absolutely passionate about natural diamonds. I believe in them. There is all the consumer behavior that we read on social media, hear from retailers. There is no issue at all with young consumers loving natural diamonds and desiring them. Like I said, I mentioned earlier on, Taylor Swift getting engaged with a natural diamond was just the biggest thing on the internet this year. And it wasn't Taylor Swift getting engaged, it was the ring. What is the ring? So fundamentally, it's great. But we have to take a long-term view on how we're going to fund the communication of this industry, which De Beers did for many decades, and we're nowhere near there yet. We are nowhere near there yet. I'm sorry to be leaving before we get to that point where we are there, but we have to accelerate that. We have to accelerate. We cannot sit on our hands any longer saying, oh, we have to speak to the consumer. I've had it for 6 years. We have to speak to the consumer. We have to speak to the consumer. All spoken about on these kind of forums, but we're only a small step closer to actually making that happen. So for me, leadership is about making things happen for the long term and having the real drive, the real desire to break through internal barriers, to be honest and upfront. So if there's challenges, let's talk about them. But let's not just sit around and say we have to do it. But leadership is about finding the vehicles to make that happen.
Thank you so much, David. And I think on behalf of everyone, it's an opportunity to thank you for your efforts in sort of spearheading that effort with, within the industry, just from a personal point of view anyway. But thanks everyone. I think we're a bit we're over time, I think, so we're not going to have time for questions, but I'd encourage you all to engage in this discussion with any one of these knowledgeable panelists. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you to our panelists for a really insightful discussion. It's greatly appreciated, and looking forward to the dinner tonight.